I must have been around 5 years old when this happened, still cocooned in the world of childhood innocence and endless curiosity. My father passed away in a car accident shortly after my third birthday. He was struck by a drunk driver in the early afternoon while he went to pick up McDonald's for our lunch. The other driver was a 30-something-year-old man that had apparently passed his Saturday morning staring at the inside of a 40-ounce, and then decided that he wanted to go too fast down a main road. My dad apparently pulled out of the parking lot thinking that he was just bringing my mom and I some chicken nuggets when that man came over the hill. My dad didn't see him, and he wasn't cognizant enough to avoid my dad, and, well, that's how my father lost his life. It may not be relevant, and I know McDonald's had nothing to do with it, but I can't even look at the Golden Arches logo without feeling this sharp wave of depression wash over me. Obviously, at this time, I didn't understand, but being an adult now, this kind of thing really weighs heavy on your mind. That incredibly depressing intro to the story is to simply say that my father has been gone since I was 3, and this event took place around 2 years later. In those 2 years, my father's absence was this strange fact of life that was largely abstract to me. Growing up, my mother would tell me these stories about him, how he loved to fish, how he was quite the jokester, and how he loved me with all of his heart. Being the age I was, I don't think I had any detailed memories of how my father looked or how his voice sounded, and all the visuals that I had of him were from photographs. However, no photograph or secondhand story could have ever prepared me for this encounter that would have a profound impact on me. It was around Christmas. I remember that night it had snowed and my mom was worried because our house seemed to lose power any time that it snowed or rained heavily. I remember her putting me to bed. I remember her telling me that she loved me and that Daddy would watch over me and keep me safe, like she did every night. But for some reason, this night felt different. It felt heavier. It felt more energetic. She put me to bed and shut my door, but I didn't want to go to sleep. I wanted to get up and do something. I didn't know what. I just remember having this undying amount of energy that was built up in my little body. After playing with my trucks in the dim light of my little plug-in nightlight, I remember sitting there and staring at the shadows on the wall, just thinking about nothing. Like I said, I was 5, and this is probably my first core memory, so I'm pretty sure I was just blankly staring at how the light cast the shadows of my little trucks onto the white walls, and probably just chuckling at how spooky it was to me. But then, as I was staring at the shadows, I remember looking toward my door and seeing a figure standing in the corner of the room. This silhouette had an aura that was completely familiar to me. I wasn't afraid of it at all. Instead, curiosity tugged at me and told me that I didn't need to be scared. I remember in complete and vivid detail looking up at this tall, kind-faced man with a beard growing from his chin and thinking, that's my dad. It wasn't some sort of visual hallucination. I'm sure of that. And this was like a living, breathing entity that was my father. His smile was radiant, his eyes were filled with tears, and I could tell that he was watching me and smiling. Then I heard his voice. He said, "Hey kiddo, I know this might be confusing to you, but I wanted to stop by and see you now that you're a little older." I remember that after that, we talked about everything and nothing in particular. The conversation that ensued is hard to put into words. It was like it wasn't spoken, but just communicated between the two of us, like some kind of conscious dream. It felt real, more real than anything else I can remember from those years. I remember him telling me that he loved how curious I was, and that I was going to be such a smart boy. I think I told him about my trucks. I was really into the trucks at the time. I remember him smiling and laughing each time I explained which truck was which and what their purposes were. After a while, the conversation wound down and he gave me one last comforting smile, and then spoke his last words to me. Words that I can play in my head as clearly as how I heard them that night. He said, "I'm sorry that I have to go again, but I hope you'll always remember how much I love you. I'll always be with you. Okay?" I remember nodding at him and smiling back, saying, "Okay," or "thank you." And with that, he was completely gone. And I was once again alone in my bedroom. And that conversation, it left a lingering sense of peace and understanding that, even at 5, resonated with me. Even now, after all these years, the memory of that night is crystal clear in my mind. Some might say it was nothing more than a dream or just something created by my imagination, but I am convinced of the reality of that encounter. The spirit of my father came to visit me that night, to have that last conversation with his son, and to impart that sense of peace that has stayed with me ever since. It's a night that I've kept close to my heart, a reminder that my father never really left me, that he'll always be there to guide me. I believe with every fiber of my being that my father is with me, guiding me, and he's been that silent hand that has pushed me to be the man that I am today.